everybody. Welcome to Shadow at Night. This is Tuesday, June the 24th. 1 second here. Just 1 second. Tuesday, June 24th, 2025. On the show tonight, our guest is Amber Harris. She's a councilor from the town of Gibbons, Alberta. This is about 45 minutes to an hour north of Edmonton. We're going to talk about some corruption that is going on in that town council and what's been done about it, or what hasn't been done about it, what could be done about it, what might not be done about it. But she is speaking out, and she's one of the only ones. And apparently, like I was talking about the other night when we had Lisa Robinson from Pickering, Ontario on the show, this is a very widespread problem. This is not just isolated to one city here, one town there. This is all across the country. And at the municipal level, it's especially insidious because these are the people that control your communities. These are the people that fund this or don't fund that. These are the people who decide to fly pride flags at City Hall. These are the people who decide to put pride crosswalks on your main intersection in your town. These are the people who fund your community centers. These are the people that you probably should be most engaged with on a political level. And yet, for whatever reason, Canadians don't seem to think municipal politics are all that important. We're going to get into that and more. Amber Harris, councilor of Gibbons, Alberta, coming up in just a couple of minutes. Hello, everybody. How are you guys doing tonight? I didn't say my hellos last night. I felt bad about it. Oh, and by the way, remember last night I was complaining about not knowing where the shirt I was wearing came from last night? Because on my trip out to BC to the ostrich farm, I'd gotten so much stuff to bring to the ostrich farm, and then people were giving me shirts and hats and whatnot. Well, that shirt, that white, simple white t-shirt that said freedom on the front of it, was given to me by the woman we call simply the photographer, Cheryl Zimmer. And I was reminded of that this morning when I woke up by Cheryl and by our friend from Canada Nano Silver, Kev. So thank you very much, Cheryl. That is a truly amazing shirt, and I was very proud to wear it on the show last night. Hello, Monica from Lorette. Hello, Rita, watching on X tonight. Benita is watching tonight. Benita Peterson. Petitions can pay off, especially at the municipal level, she says. Benita is very involved in all of this stuff. She is a great resource to have, and I appreciate everything you do, Benita, just so you know that. Vanessa's watching from Red Deer tonight. Hello, Railroaded, watching on YouTube. Muriel's watching in Newfoundland. Hello, Edna, watching in Victoria. John is watching in the RM of Dufferin, Manitoba. Nell is watching tonight. Likes the opening music. Well, it's been the same music for the past year. You must be new. So thank you for joining us. Hello, Eddie, Colleen, Dan. And over on Rumble, we've got Notable, Patricia, Vilma, Lone, Arnie, Springer Dinger, Esky Dogs, Miss Kitty 19. Jimmy James is over there as well. No matter what platform you guys are watching on tonight, please do not forget to like and share. We're busting corruption tonight at the local level on the Shadow at Night live stream, which is brought to you each and every night by, hang on just 1 second. Each and every night by our friends at CanadaNanoSilver.com.
Silver is amazing. It has several natural health benefits, and it's been used for hundreds of years for health and healing. That's the main reason they made silverware from silver. But seriously, this nano silver from Silverceuticals is the best and safest silver you can find. There are hundreds of studies and reports on it. I've read some of the studies myself, and it's mind-blowing. One of the things that sets Silverceuticals apart is that it washes out of your body in 24 hours. No silver buildup and no turning blue. And it won't even harm the good bacteria your body needs. It's so effective they can use very small concentrations of silver, like 10 and 32 parts per million, and still outperform other silvers that have up to 3,000 parts per million. It's safer and more effective at the same time. It is an incredibly small particle that is small enough to work through your body, but big enough not to fall out of suspension. They infuse it into almost all of their products. It works in facial serums, toothpaste, gels, and even gummies that work to help your immune system.
Yes, all those great products like the immune gummies and the new facial serum and the body creams and the toothpaste, all of that stuff. scientifically tested, by the way. It's on the website. All of the information, all of the ingredients, everything you need to know is on the website, CanadaNanoSilver.com, 204-808-9292 if you'd like to talk to Kevin and Anna directly. I'm sure they would like to talk to you as well. And by the way, if you're thinking about maybe doing a side hustle and getting involved in the business end of it, you can talk to Kevin and Anna about that as well. CanadaNanoSilver.com. We'll be back in just a second with our guest tonight, Amber Harris, councillor in Gibbons, Alberta. Hello, Amber. How are you? Thanks for coming on the show tonight.
Thank you very much for the invitation. I am well. I hope you are as well, my friend.
I am very well, thank you. You know, I got an email. I was going through all the emails for the past 4 days. I was away for a few weeks and I neglected the email. So I was trying to catch up with the email. And one of my viewers sent me an email regarding you and then that recording of the interview and the special feature that Mocha Berzagain, or I think that's his last name, did on what's going on at Council in Gibbons. And I was very fascinated by it because I had just had Lisa Robinson from Pickering on, I think 2 days before I got that email. And I thought, wow, there is so much corruption that's going on at the local level all across this country. And when I watched that feature that Mocha did, I mean, he said that it's going on everywhere across Alberta. And you seem to be the only one speaking out about it.
I would say I'm the only one speaking out about it in Gibbons, but I can assure you I've been in contact with several other councillors throughout Alberta, actually, especially since the interview with Mocha, which, by the way, he did a fabulous job.
Yes.
Kudos to him. But yeah, I probably have, I would say, easily 6, 7 different municipalities that have a very similar situation to mine. Yeah.
That is good to hear because it seems as though there's so many people who are scared to speak out these days. And some of the things that you and I even discussed in the last few days over Messenger, I mean, my goodness, people following you around. And we'll get to all of that. But I want to get back to the beginning. You've been a councillor there for 12 years, since 2013, right?
2013, October 2013 was my first term, yes. Okay,
so since you've been there, what has changed with the environment, with the people that you're surrounded by? What is incredibly different? Because, you know, when Lisa comes on, she's a new councillor, right? She's only going through her first term, unpaid, mind you, doing all the work, but still unpaid. She's had her salary suspended 5 times. She's learning the ropes and she's doing very well. She's a fast learner, but you've been around for a long time. You're a veteran. And so I want to find out, you know, the differences between now and then.
You know, one thing I've learned certainly for this term is how truly ignorant, by definition of that word, people who run for any elected position are, and we're really at the mercy of the bureaucrats. And it doesn't matter what level of government you know you decide to you know participate in, because it essentially I mean the people who run, there's no training for it. There's no I mean, certainly you can have a background in your your personal life, your profession, that would certainly enhance or you know would be useful in your position as an elected official. But at the end of the day, it's the bureaucratic positions that are the ones who, and specifically in municipal politics or municipal governance, it's the CAO or Chief Administrative Officer or city manager, town manager, who is, and this is what I was told, you know, when I first started, that position or that individual in that position is supposed to be the trusted advisor to the elected officials. So, it's extremely important that that person be ethical and moral, because if they're not, then essentially the final decisions rest with the council, of course. But if that individual wants a decision to go a particular way, then basically they can tell us what they want to tell us by omitting information, by adding information, by convoluting information, and we're none the wiser. It's funny because I saw that I watched the interview. I've been following Lisa for quite a while now, and when she mentioned that her CAO, when they were renovating their council chambers, that their CAO was now going to be sitting up with
The mayor.
the council. Yeah. I mean, and this may sound shocking to some, but our CAO sat, I mean, remember, like I said, I started in 2013. As a matter of fact, there were 5 new councilors out of a council of 7 along with me. So we relied very heavily on their expertise, but I didn't know that the CAO wasn't to be sitting beside the mayor up until probably March of 22. And it was only honest to goodness. And it, I only know what I've been told, right? And so it wasn't until a councilor from a neighboring municipality asked me why our CAO was sitting up beside the mayor, and I, obviously said, "What are you talking about?" And in this conversation, she said to me, "Well, ours doesn't. Ours sits with the rest of the administration." So of course I got off that phone call with her and I Googled like a mad woman, and I, did a little research of the, with other municipalities throughout Alberta, and lo and behold, she's right. I mean, that sounds very simple, but that's exactly what I mean. I mean, we go.
No, it's very
really,
symbolic of the power structure, right? Or
Yeah.
what the power structure shouldn't be, as compared
Absolutely.
to what they're portraying to the people of whatever community they're purportedly serving. Can you break down, because you mentioned this earlier, and there's been a lot of conversation in the comments of this show and others that I know, especially recently, about how government actually works. And Maggie Hope Braun has come on, and she's from Kickley, and she's come on and she's talked about the people you have to get to are the ones who are specifically with the CPC, which is the climate protection people who are involved in the Federation of Municipalities
FCM.
across Canada.
Yeah.
Right. And so you can find the people who are woke, who are pushing these ideologies, but they're usually within the administration. So when you say that these people can hoodwink councillors, let's just say, is that something that's easy to do? Is it like a radar Colonel Blake situation from MASH? Like, just sign here, sir? Or is it like...
Are you still like my age now, my friend? Because I know exactly who you're talking about.
No, nothing like that.
I'm just teasing you.
Is it like that? Or do councillors actually do the work, do the reading, put in the required time to make sure that they know what they're signing?
Again, that's a really... When I say elected officials are at the mercy of the bureaucrats, I mean it, because it's not like, I mean, now I can recite the Municipal Government Act back to front, right? Or the Freedom of Information and Privacy. They've changed that act recently, but for the most part, the average person wouldn't be versed in legislation. Right. And so to familiarize yourself as an elected official with the acts that, we are governed by, certainly. But in the, that's sort of high level. That's where we rely. And again, in this case, the CAO to interpret and apply whatever legislation to whatever decision we have to make, right? And so it's blind trust to begin with, and in my case, the thing that's prompted me, or that's put me where I am now, is because I've been asking questions, and the answers that I've received have prompted me to go and look at legislation and whatnot. So I've educated myself, and as a matter of fact, that's if there's one thing that I would hope to come out of my last 3.5 years, it's to figure out a way to educate incoming elected officials as well as the communities, because in the introduction of your show, I mean, apathy is rampant. It doesn't matter what level of politics you talk about. It's all the same. We're all the same voters, right? So, but it's certainly the case where at the municipal level, I mean, as a matter of fact, on a daily basis, I speak with people about my position in some way, shape, or form as their counselor, right? So, but going back to your question, we rely on the administration of the municipality to sort of guide us. Yes.
Have you ever had an altercation with any of the administration because you wanted something they didn't deliver, or you noticed something wasn't quite right with the information you received from them?
Oh my gosh, that's been my last 3.5 years.
Okay, good. So
yeah.
hang on a second. I took this out of the Mocha piece today. This is you having a conversation, let's say, to be nice about it, with a couple of other city councilors. I want to get your take on what happened here after we watch.
Barry.
Sure.
I would like to encourage Councillor Harris to put forward a motion if she would like to do that. Other than that, I would like us to move ahead.
I'm glad you'd like us to move ahead. I would like to know why we took out $2.5 million against our arena, why we're using it for operating costs and not calling it operating costs. It was presented to the public as a project, a capital borrowing bylaw.
Ms. Pino.
Just would like to remind council those discussions were held in closed session.
I'm not speaking about specifics, Ms. Pinot.
You're asking about decisions that were discussed.
Yeah, and the decisions were made. The decisions were made in public. I'm talking about the public.
But you're asking about deliberations.
Correct.
The deliberations are closed.
The documentation is a public document.
Correct.
That is what I'm asking about.
Happened in that.
No, that is what I'm asking about.
Section 23 of the FOIP Act says that deliberations remain closed.
I'm not asking about the deliberations. I'm asking why we are using $2.5 million for operating costs when the bylaw that is documented for the public to see indicates that it is a capital borrowing bylaw.
And the why is part of the closed session.
Amber, what happened there? What was going on in that conversation? Why were you getting stonewalled like that? Was it a procedural thing, or were you uncovering corruption and they did not want that to happen?
Definitely the latter. And how it came about is that in January of this year, so the beginning of this year, I was away on vacation the first week, end of December, first week of January, and while I was on vacation, I was notified that our town manager had. Well, I didn't know the
you can say allegedly. You can say allegedly before anything you say.
Okay,
and then
certainly.
You're
okay.
protecting yourself.
Thank you. His alleged resignation. So that's where, when they refer to the why that was discussed in the closed session, that's what they were alluding to. But in this particular instance, and this is where I've had to do my homework, and a prime example of what you'd asked me just a moment ago is that right at that point, we were discussing the facts because, again, I was not privy to these conversations as I was on vacation. But the CAO left at the beginning of January. A special meeting was called by my mayor to discuss it with the rest of council. And then subsequent meetings, the following, so the special meeting was on a Monday and our regular council meeting was on the Wednesday. And so that's when the borrowing of the $2.5 million originated from. And I discovered that our council had approved basically a mortgage of $2.5 million that was used. It was our arena was used ultimately as collateral, basically. So,
what was the mortgage for?
Well, there's a whole bunch of things several things that come into play in this. The $2.5 million was bridge financing because the town's finances were in turmoil at that point. And if you can, the CAO left and our finances were in turmoil. I'll just leave it at that. So in order to pay our bills, basically, we had to get borrow $2.5 million to pay those bills. Now, and this is where the ignorance of an elected official would come into play, because there are certain criteria and certain procedures that we must follow in the Municipal Government Act when we borrow either for a capital project, which is tangible items, trucks, sidewalks, that sort of thing, or operational purposes, obviously with day-to-day operations, personnel, etc., for the municipality. So in order to borrow for either one of those two circumstances, there are certain criteria. And in this case, the documentation that was put out to the public was that there was a project that we needed $2.5 million for, and we borrowed against the arena. However, the project, there was no information about what this project was. So that right there raised red flags, because, I mean, how can we indicate to our residents that, there's a project? When somebody asks me, what project are we borrowing the $2.5 million for? I don't know. In this case, it was actually borrowed for operational purposes, and therefore the procedure to borrow for operational purposes is different than for capital borrowing. Does that make, did I make sense at all?
Sure. But okay. What I want to know is, what was the opposition in there? I mean, you were asking questions on behalf of your constituents, obviously, as all the other councillors should have been as well, unless they were involved in some kind of cover-up scheme or maybe kickback scheme. I don't know, but it seems very shady.
Well, with the departure of the CAO,
were they trying to cover up the fact that this guy was a criminal, allegedly? That
he got $200 and some thousand as a severance package, and they made an announcement to our community that he resigned. And we're all fully aware of what his contract says. And if there was, as far as I'm concerned, there was, the way that I read it, there was no provision for a severance package if the individual resigns.
So wait a minute. So he got $200,000 after resigning at severance. Severance generally happens when you get fired before your contract term is over.
Exactly. And so,
wait a minute, hold on. Sure. Is this guy, was he in bed with some of the councillors, maybe sharing some money from the proceeds of whatever the hell they were doing, misappropriating funds? And I know that if you say something against the grain, you may have to pay for it, but you've been doing that anyway, right?
Yeah, and that's why what you saw is what I get. I have my thoughts. I don't want to make any allegations against my fellow councillors, but I mean, one has to ask themselves the exact question that you just asked: why would there be pushback when, because remember, I was not privy to the conversations that happened about with the departure of the CAO, right? And so, as a matter of fact, when I was in Mexico at the time when I initially found out about the a special meeting. The mayor, I know that Lisa had indicated that in Ontario, or at least in Pickering, they have a strong mayor system,
Yeah.
which is the mayor has additional powers to the council. But in ours, we have a weak mayor system. So the mayor is just the spokesperson, basically, chair of the meetings and whatnot. So, but one of the extra powers under the Municipal Government Act for the mayor is the ability to call a special meeting. And in this case, while I was on vacation, I believe January 6th, the mayor had emailed all of us, and I was actually it was my travel day that I received the email, which was the Sunday, and the 6th of January, if I believe I have my dates right, was the date of the special meeting.
So the mayor had a meeting with everybody but you, all the councillors but you, because you weren't there, like Lorraine Barry, maybe.
That's all of them. All of them were privy to this. And
okay.
so.
Oh, look, there you are. That's a nice picture.
There I am. Oh, God, I'm a baby there.
Councillor Willis Kozak. Councillor J. Milante. Is it Milante?
Milante, yep. That's right.
And then you've got Councillor Norman Sandal. Well, I can tell you from looking at these photos, it doesn't look like you've got a woke ideology problem on council anyway. But that's...
Well, no. I would say that, like I said, for the most part, we are aligned in our political views. I would say, and even if we're not, I would say that we have a really good. At the end of the day, everybody wants to have the same results, right? Yeah, but it's just a matter of getting there that may differ. So, up until this last term, I've never had any issue with any of the councillors. And remember, I've sat on for 4 years with most of these individuals.
Yeah.
Right. And our mayor actually stepped down shortly after the CAO had left in January. But
so you've known these people. You've been sitting on council with them for 1 or 2 terms. And are they good people, these councillors? It shouldn't be that tough a question, Amber.
I'll tell you, I thought they were. I guess I had an assumption that everybody thought like me, and that we were right there. And because what I want to make it very clear, everything that I know, I have relayed to my fellow council from the beginning of this term. So it's not like I have failed to share in the information that I have discovered, or at the very least, the reasons for the questions that I'm asking. I guess you'd have to ask them why they behave the way they do.
This sounds like a movie to me, a movie starring Ethan Hawke.
Oh, you have no idea, my friend.
Ethan Hawke and Denzel Washington, where he goes onto this squad and they're all dirty. It's like the
honestly,
vice squad.
I've actually, the running joke is when I speak with people, welcome to Hotel California, because I've had many residents, step up to the plate and help me bring this, to the surface, and B, pick whoever you want to play your role in the, in the miniseries.
Have you ever tried to have one-on-one conversations with Lorraine Barry or any of the other councillors about any of this stuff, or are they like avoiding you at all costs?
Yeah, no, it wouldn't work. There's something that I should probably note, like I said at the very beginning of the conversation, about the power that the administrator has. And this particular administrator that is thankfully no longer with us, he would regularly have meetings with the rest of council, and he called them CAO briefing sessions, excluding me. And I know this because there's a long history. I mean, I could go really, if you really wanted me to go back to the beginning of my time here,
Yeah.
it would be a series of interviews, my friend, because I'm the 2.0 version of what our CAO did to our mayor back in 2013, my 2013, 2017.
I don't know what that means. What does that mean? Like
Okay.
the CAO destroyed the mayor back
Yeah.
in the day,
And
now you're next.
Yeah, and I honestly, I'm ashamed to say at this point in time that I participated. I was what you would consider me the same as what you've watched. But because the CAO at the time had, I mean, it was, gosh, my first or second meeting. And remember, there were 5 new councilors in 2013, like October of 2013, 5 brand new council. The mayor was an incumbent, but he was a council prior, and I was a huge supporter of him, and 1 incumbent councilor. So, and the CAO was hired within 10 months, I would say, of, within 2012, mid to late 2012. Anyway, and so I think it was, was either my first or second meeting at all. My CAO had submitted his resignation, literally quivering lip, submitted his resignation to all of council, and alleged that the mayor at the time was bullying and harassing him, and he just couldn't possibly, carry on under those conditions. And so, of course, we're all excited that we've made it this far and we're elected and we've got all of these grand ideas, and here the individual that we're supposed to be relying on to show us the way is going to leave. And so, of course, all of us, I can't swear on here, but you can imagine, went, holy cow. And
Yeah.
and
Holy cow.
and I have apologized. I actually stalked this poor gentleman a couple of years ago, and I stopped him downtown. I apologized to him. Anyway, so for 4 years, you can actually Google it. I mean, we were in the National Post. That's how much power. And I didn't know back then that he wasn't supposed to be doing, he meaning the CAO, that he wasn't supposed to be doing what he was doing insofar as calling special meetings, drafting motions. He basically, what he did was he guided the rest of council, 6 of us, on how to proceed, and he groomed us. That's a good word, I would say. He groomed us. Yeah, it was terrible. And I think,
and he wanted that mayor gone back in the day,
gone.
and he told you guys you've got to gang up on him.
Yep.
And oh wow.
Well, he's not in so many words, but he would say, "Oh, developers like harmonious governance," and so in order to, develop our community and bring in jobs and tax money from businesses, and we have basically, the 6 of us had to steer the ship in the right direction, because
that's not how democracy works, man. And so what happened between then and when you, I guess I can use the expression, woke up and realized, well, there's something wrong here, man. Like, what the hell? And then you started speaking up the other way.
Yeah, I did, and it was
What
an
did you see?
unfortunate.
What did you see? I want to know what you saw.
Okay, so I can talk about the sexual assault then,
Hmm.
because okay, so October of 2021 was the election, the election for my third term, and in November of 2021, we were the council prior to a regular meeting of council. We were asked to come in early so that we could have our photos taken for the new term. And when I went into the council chambers, it was the tail end of COVID, and so, I'll say that the individual, I'd known him. He was one of the individuals that was elected with me back in 2013. I will note that he was very, very good friends with our CAO, by the way, like to the extent that they had gone on vacation, etc.
And so he felt kind of bulletproof, like he could do anything and get away with it, maybe?
Oh, I would suspect so.
Okay.
And I have a pretty thick skin. I would, if somebody is being untoward, doesn't matter what the gender is, I have no problem telling them my opinion. All right. So, this individual, he was one of those. He was one of those gentlemen that not a gentleman, wrong term, but very inappropriate comments, but I mean, frankly, I'd go tell him to
Piss
change
up
his
a rope?
tune. Yeah.
Something like that?
And right. And I'd be able to deal with it. And I suppose shame on me for not managing it at that point. But like I said, it wasn't anything that I couldn't manage on my own. And I will note that his behavior was known in my circles, like in not only the municipal world, but in others throughout the community. So anyways, but
How many people in Gibbons, by the way?
about 3,200.
Okay. So it's not that
Yeah.
big a community.
No.
So everybody knows everybody, right?
Oh yes. And
Okay.
and just so we're only about 20 minutes away from Edmonton, so
Oh,
we're
I thought it
very
was further.
involved with with the councils in our region. And so anyway, nonetheless, I can manage his mouth sometimes, what the things that come out of his mouth. And anyway, so when I walked into the chambers on this particular evening, I mean, I'm in dress clothes. I walked in, there's a flurry of activity within the chambers, between employees and council and photographers and whatnot. But it was the tail end of COVID. And so the mask mandates had been dropped. But when I walked in, some of the individuals were wearing masks and some weren't. So I asked this individual, this councilor, just to, what I wanted to ask him is if he knew if we were wearing the masks for our photographs, because I would have probably lost my bananas at that point. But, anyway, that's a whole different story. So I just called him around the corner into a side, like our council side office. I mean, the doors were open. I could have reached around and touched the person that was standing on the other side of the door. I asked him my question, and then he proceeded to, after he finished answering me, he proceeded to grab my bra strap about yay high. He jiggled my breasts up and down. He looked at me and said, "Oh, don't you bend over and shake those babies in when you put your bra on?" And he laughed and walked out the door. And I was so stunned. That wouldn't happen in any other circumstance with me. I mean, I'm certain that you kind of get the idea of what kind of individual I am. But I was so stunned that had happened that I didn't say anything at that moment. I walked out.
I imagine you would be in almost like a state of shock, right? Like, what the hell?
Honestly, I was. And
violated? So, like violated.
Yeah,
right?
But it didn't register with me at that. But shock was the best way to describe it. So after after that happened, I walked out back into the chambers, and we sat down. We had our photographs taken and everything, and then we carried on with the regular meeting that we had scheduled for council. And it wasn't until I was driving home that evening that I really thought, did that just effing happen? I really had to sort of think about it in my head. So I came home and I told my husband, and he was, needless to say, he was not pleased. And then I phoned
Probably
my mom,
wanted to go over to the guy's place with a baseball bat, I'm sure.
a little bit, yeah. And then I phoned my mom, and I told my mom, and as a matter of fact, she said, "You didn't kick him in the," and I said, "Mom, I know, I can't believe I didn't either." But the next day, and remember I said that this individual had a reputation within the circles. Well, I had phoned a fellow councilor in a neighboring municipality, Rebecca Blanco, and I can't use her name because she's actually made a public statement about it, about her circumstance. And I told her what happened. And she said, well, I better tell you what happened last month at a regional meeting in the town is Mornville, which is about 20 minutes away from us. And we're within Sturgeon County, and then there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 municipalities within the county. And she proceeded to tell me that at this, I wasn't at this event, but at an event just prior, like I said, the month prior, she had seen him, or he had seen her while she was parking her vehicle, and he walked over to her and sort of cornered her within her, driver's side door and her car, and gave her a hug, and then ran his hand down her back and grabbed her buttocks. And so at that point, I said to her, okay, if he's bold enough to do that to you and I, then my gosh, right? So I contacted the mayor, and the following day, and so this is only within 36 hours of when this happened. And I told him what happened, and he asked me to come in, early the following week to speak with him and the CAO. And at that point, I had no problem doing that, because I really thought that the town manager at the time, well, frankly, let me back up. I didn't know he shouldn't have been involved at that time. But because I'd been, working with him for so long, okay.
You
so I met
trusted
with
him,
him.
sure.
Yeah, of course I did.
Yeah.
And regardless of whether or not he and this counselor were personal friends, most of the people, all of the people that I know, if there was, would, if their friend had behaved like that, then, you'd think that they would call him out, right? Anyway,
Well,
so
you hold them responsible in some way.
100%.
Even if it's a private, stern talking to. I mean, I've had that kind of situation happen before.
Yeah.
I've seen a friend of mine who did something like that to a woman get the crap beaten out of him by his buddies for that kind of behavior, because he was defiant in it, right?
Yeah. So
I mean, we know how to deal with things like that in male world, and there's people that don't quite understand that. But if we find that stuff out, usually there is some sort of payment for that within your friendship realm.
yeah.
But in this case,
and
I guess not.
No, well, no, no, that's not what happened. So when I had a scheduled meeting with early the following week, so this would have been now, I believe, the 1st of December of 2021, and I met with the mayor, and I know that this is a long-winded explanation. Your question was, what tipped me off, right? And this is how it all started, because when I went to go in and have this meeting, and I proceeded to tell the mayor and the CAO what had happened, the mayor looked at me and said, oh, well, this is the second complaint. Maybe we should do something about it. And me not being a rookie, knowing full well that the mayor does not have arbitrary decision-making powers, I said, what are you talking about, second complaint? Because if there was a complaint from another woman, right, historically, then I should know about it as a council member, right? and he proceeded to tell me that, oh, the individual made a complaint back in 2020, January 2020, and she didn't want it to be made public. So basically the CAO and I handled it. And I mean, at that point, yeah, I was not impressed at all. And so that's when I started calling out both the mayor and the CAO to my fellow councilors, because neither one of those individuals have any authority to withhold that type of information from council. And so I had I was told that, knowing that he couldn't be fired. I mean, because at this point, or at that point, there was, counselors still can't be fired. Well, now they can because of the changes within the Municipal Government Act. But anyway, right? I was told that there would be a statement put out, and that, whatever council had decided, if there were going to be reprimands or whatnot, that it would just be made known to the community, right? And then the community could decide whether or not this individual should stay, right?
Yep.
So, in moving on into January of 2022, we had 2 regular meetings at council where he actually admitted his actions towards me in front of all of council. He admitted it, and that's everything that I'm stating is factual information. So, I can provide documentation.
So he came out and he admitted what he did to you.
Yeah.
Did he admit exactly what he did to you, or did he try to polish it up a bit?
Oh no! In my letter of complaint, I wrote very clearly what he did. Just like I told you what happened, that was it, because there was no way that I was going to make an allegation like this and leave it up for interpretation. I'm not filing a hurt feelings report. I am filing a complaint, and this is exactly what happened. And if he chose to refute it, then he could have, but he didn't. He actually said, "I was helping you. You were crooked," and I mean, that was and it was at that point.
I was helping you? That's what he tried to say?
Yes. Yeah. And keep in mind, this is in front of all of my council, and nobody said anything except me. I mean, my blood pressure went up a little bit at that point. Yeah. Nothing was said in my defense. And then when council had decided that they were going to sanction him, again, like I was told, there would be a statement put out to the community, and then the court of public opinion would be taken, or would
Yep.
happen. And then when his letter of reprimand, because that document is public, right, and it was to be posted on the website, was actually issued, and it said, if I'm not mistaken, something to the effect of your actions and words towards Councilor Harris, and it indicates in there that he admitted it. And I thought, actions and words? Not a chance it was an actions and words.
Well, actions technically, but they didn't go into detail about how he grabbed you and fondled you and yanked on your bra straps.
Yeah. And so I had requested, after nearing the end of February of 22, that my letter of complaint be put alongside that letter of reprimand, so people would be have a very clear understanding of what happened and what he admitted to. And so, I guess from that point on, I started to battle my council and make them understand that the mayor and the CAO were way, way out of line in how they dealt with a complaint from 2020.
It's a cover up. It's a cover up, first of all, which they were not authorized to ever do.
That's right. And so in I mean, I had to sit beside this guy from that point until he stepped down on May 19th of 22, right? And it was just business as usual. Like there was, I actually had a phone call from a former counselor, and she asked me if, I wanted to come to lunch with, our old counselor, and did I mind if he came along? And I thought, what planet am I on, right? So and in May of 2022 is when Councilor Rebecca Blanco submitted a very, very lengthy complaint of her experience. And it was, it was emailed to all of my council, all of her council. And you would think that at this point, there would be a flurry of activity, of email activity between my council about, what information we'd just received. And it was radio silence, nothing. And so I had contacted the mayor the day after. I had known at this point that he was out of town, but returning this particular evening. And because I wanted to know, like, what the heck? How come did you not get the email? Are you not as appalled as I am? Kind of thing. And so when I contacted him the following evening, I said, did you get Councilor Blanco's email? And he said, no. I said, you should hang up the phone and call me back and after you read her email. So he did that, and when he called me back, he said, that's why Farrell and Darren want to meet with me tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. And I said, remember, there are not supposed to be these little sidebar meetings, right? And I said, not a chance. Are you meeting with those two by yourself? If they want to say anything, then you can either bring other counselors with you as witnesses, or they can speak in front of the entire council. But there's all these private meetings that have been taking place. That's the end of it. And so he had agreed. And pardon me, I also said that because our regular council meeting was not due for another week or so, I said, I really think that we should hold, I strongly request, I am requesting that the mayor call a special meeting so that we could get this information about the neighboring councilors' experience out in the public as soon as possible to prevent any damage control, right? So that we could eliminate them having the opportunity to do any damage control. So he agreed. We got off the phone. He had sent out an email to all of council. The first email was to the town manager indicating that he would not be attending the meeting that was requested the next morning between he and this counselor, and that he would be calling a special meeting for Friday. And this was the Friday prior to the long weekend in May. And next thing you know, we got an email from the CAO the following morning that the counselor had resigned.
They gave him the opportunity, right?
So
you resign, or this is what's going to happen. Let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
When all this is going on, you're in a community of 3,500 people, give or take.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people talk all the time, right? About everything, especially, counselors. I'm sure you've got a spotlight on you.
Mm-hmm.
How was it for you at that point? Were there a lot of people
it was more
calling you names?
frustrating because people weren't talking about it. Nobody knew. There was nothing. There was no, like I said, there was zero put out to the community.
Yeah, but come on. I mean, you have a poop in the morning and the guy down the street knows what color it is 5 minutes later at a town like that. Honest
to goodness. I mean, you would think, especially, I mean, as a matter of fact, I didn't. So we have, those were three, myself, the counselor from the neighboring community, the instance or the assault that occurred in January of 2020, And subsequently, I actually found out that there was a complaint from a summer student in 2017 that had also been covered up. Same guy, right?
These guys
Same
always work in
CAO.
patterns, right? It's always a pattern. There's always something. It's always, if there's one, there's going to be more every single time.
Yeah.
Wow.
So going back to your question, honestly, I think that the initial, the incident with him was shocking. It was more shocking. No, not more shocking. Equally as unbelievable to me that I sat with 6 other individuals who all knew what had happened with me, and now they knew what happened with another counselor. I told them about the 2 the 2 other complaints that had occurred prior to this. Nothing, not one to this day, not one of them.
Is that
As a
when
matter of
they
fact,
is that when they turned on you? Is that when they started treating you like badly?
I think that see, when I went in to make my initial complaint, it was supposed to be addressed at the following council meeting at the end of December 2021. And, interestingly enough, he didn't come to that meeting. He was sick. He did not miss
What do you have?
a
COVID?
council meeting.
He had COVID all day.
Well, as a matter of fact, yes, that was there was somebody in his household that led. Yeah. Mhm. So when, but my counsel on that, at that particular meeting, they were presented with my complaint and what the issue was. And that was the only time that any of them had sort of behaved like you would think somebody would behave. I did, however, get a text message from this counselor, the next morning that asked me if I had a couple minutes to chat, which I still have. I didn't respond though. So, and
I might have taken that call and recorded it.
And recorded it. I wasn't that smart back then. I didn't know. I was very naive, right? It's funny because I had a mayor of one of our neighboring communities when I was sanctioned and whatnot. But she said to me, "Boy, did they do themselves a disservice by giving you so much time on your hands." Because I mean
lots of time to investigate all the improprieties.
Oh my gosh, yeah, and so somewhere I can't prove this unless I FOIP emails, but somewhere between December of 2021 and our meeting in January 2022, the demeanor of my counselors changed, and from that point on, I mean,
you felt whispering behind your back. You felt people avoiding you in hallways, that kind of thing.
Yeah, well,
alienation.
I didn't want to bring negative attention to my community, right? And I truly had, the belief that the 6 people that I sat with were good, solid leaders of the community, and knowing what they knew, they would react and
properly. They would react properly,
right? And so I really spent all of the 2022 to try and shake, what I did was I provided them with enough information that I had discovered, the documentation and everything, and with the expectation that their tunes would change, right? And to be honest with you, I didn't even know about. I did not find out, nor did the rest of council actually find out about the particulars of the complaint that came in from 2020 until October of 2022, when I actually sent out an email to the mayor and the CAO, and I asked for very specific pieces of information, and that's when I found out that this counselor had gone into a local sports, like a sports bar for lunch, and she had walked in and saw this young lady, this waitress that was working there, and he stood perpendicular to her, rubbed his
Junk. We can say
self,
junk.
yeah, rubbed himself against this young lady. Made some crude, and I have the documentation. I actually have the mayor's handwritten notes, and he's the one who wrote this down. Did that to her, and then walked over to his table, and he was in fact having lunch with the CAO and other counselors. And again, all of the council knew about, like,
So this absolutely opened the door to you discovering all manner of corruption that was going on with these counselors and this CAO, and you didn't even know it at the time, right? It's like,
no,
wow.
It's funny because, like I said, I all of 2022, I was really just trying to shift some sense into the rest of my council, right? I had told my people in my community, but I really, I just wanted it to be dealt with properly.
And then move on, right? Yeah, properly dealt with, move on. We've got business to attend to here, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so at the end of 2022, when none of that was occurring, and I'm giving you super Reader's Digest here, okay?
This is Reader's Digest, because I was going to say we got to move on here.
No, but I'll give you. So this is how it sort of, this is a segue into the financial stuff.
Yeah.
Is that happened just by chance. I was talking at the beginning of January of 23. I was talking with an employee of the town who had stated that an individual who had been working for the town for 3-4 years by that time was there was an announcement that she was becoming, by the CAO at their Christmas party, that she was going to become a permanent employee. And what do you mean a permanent employee? Anyway, did a little research, found out that we had been paying her for the last however long, I believe by this time it would probably been about 3.5 years, but we were paying her through her company as a consultant. And I did math, like I went through all of the accounts payable, and for 2022 we had been paying her between $12,000 and $16,000 a month through her company
to be a consultant.
Yeah. So that and then,
and this is wait, hold on. This is the CAO's girlfriend.
Well, she was
kind of.
She was brought in. She was what we were told is that she was a retired CAO from another municipality in Alberta. Our lady who was I don't know if she was an accountant by trade, but she was our CFO who had been working with the town for 30 years. She was retiring, and the lady that I'm referring to, the one who was the consultant, was brought in just for, in the interim, right? 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago. And it's funny because that's both within like days that happened. And then within a couple of days, I actually got a phone call from another resident who had told me that she had heard that we were paying for her apartment. And so that's what sparked it off. That's how we went, from the first chapter into the digging up the finances, because at that point, that's when I started asking about, questions, real questions about the.
It's interesting. I always ask people I'm having on the show for the very first time, what was your moment, right? You've gone through a very long explanation of what happened. No, that's all right. Of what happened to you. But I mean, many people, even after that, would still kind of go, you know what? I don't want to get my nose dirty. I don't really want to dig into this too much. I mean, let's just let sleeping dogs lie. Let's just move along here and, try and do the best we can. Instead, you started investigating, and you started uncovering more and more and more corruption. So I have to ask you, why? Is that just who you are? Is that what your personality is? Have you always been that way, or did something just click in your head and you went, you know what? I'm not I'm not having it anymore?
Probably a combination of both. I mean, I have 3 adult children. I had to be an investigator to get, those 3 to adulthood, right?
Yeah.
I actually went to college and I wanted to be a police officer at one point. So I graduated from law enforcement in the mid 90s. And I was a private investigator, and I did, that's up my alley, right? But I think those were just tools that I had automatically. When I ran for, I mean, I can't stand politicians. I can't stand I was going to say the BS that is happening with our country. And I've been a political junkie for 20 plus years, right?
I want you guys watching
when
this to mark down, because everybody's always asking, questions like this of me or other people that they follow on social media. What is it that makes us immune? What is it that made us stay away from this or that, or not listen to this or that? And I think there's at least one trait that we all have in common, and that would be a very deep sense of curiosity. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, and you know what? I take my position. I mean, sure, there's only 3,200 people in Gibbons, but after watching all of the corruption at the higher levels of government, between globally, right? I thought, I can't believe that this is happening here. So it pissed me off. That's what happened, right? And so every time I'd ask a question, and I'd get an answer that would prompt me to have 5 more questions. Well, when I have nothing to do, 3 a.m. Googling or, various different, search engines, you can find out a lot.
Oh, you've gotten into the Brave, have you? You use
Oh,
Brave?
yes. Oh, yeah.
Atta girl. I like that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's everybody always shares that. I don't use Google. They're gonna refine the search results. You won't find anything you want there. Go to Brave. Brave is the one.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I know there's a
Brave
bunch of
has
others.
been my friend.
People are writing these down in the comments right now. Well, this is the one I use. I say, guys, that's absolutely
I'd
correct.
love to
Keep doing
know.
that. Yep.
Yeah.
Look in the comments after we're done tonight. I want to ask you why you were sanctioned. How many times you've been sanctioned? Have they suspended your salary? What have they done to you exactly in these last couple of years?
Yeah, I was accused of stealing because I used the town credit card with the knowledge of the CAO, and when I used that, and it was for personal use, and I'll tell you, I was not stealing. I was doing it like I used it because of an emergency. I had told him that I had used it. Well, when I started asking about the first time I had asked about the consultant's pay and her how she was how she was being retained as an employee. Well, my CAO had told my mayor that I had used the credit card and without permission, and it was a big. I mean, and there was no process. I was sent out an email that this was the allegation. I went into the meeting the following, however long after that. It was one counselor asked me one question, and it was, Amber, I have one question. Did you do it? And I said, yeah, I did it. And that was it. Next thing I knew, I was sanctioned, and they pulled my pay. And I mean, it was so terrible though, because I mean, I was mortified, right? And again, I get it. Optically, if you don't know all of the information, then it looks like I was ripping off the community. But I to this day, I've never had the opportunity. I've tried in our council meetings to address this. Anyway, I was shortly, a day or two after this, I was driving home from Edmonton, and I got a call from a friend of mine in town and who owns a local business, and she said, Amber, what the hell is going on? I'm listening to you on the Fort Saskatchewan radio, and there's a news statement put out that you ripped off the town for thousands of dollars. And I'm, what? And I, honest to God, I was bawling. I thought, accuse me of a lot of things, but I know what my faults are. Stealing is not, it's stealing from a credit card, but I was mortified. But so thankfully, I mean, I know that there are some folks out, residents in town who think I'm full of shit, but for people who know me, I've been around, like you said, 12 years. People know me. That and
They know
I'm
that you
grateful for
you
that.
see
Yeah.
that's the thing about municipal politics, right? You're in the community, you're right there with the
Yeah.
people. So if you do something like that,
Mhm.
for real, like they're going to come and get you. Like I'm not sure if they're going to
Oh
come.
yeah. Well, when that happened, I had folks call me and say, "Okay, Amber, I know you. What the hell happened?"
Right.
So, and I didn't hide from the community. Anybody who asked me, I tell them. And because, like I said, for the most part, I mean, I'm out and about. I involved in various activities. I go to the pub and have a beer with my friends, and I didn't stop. I haven't stopped my life just because of this. But that was in April of 23. They sanctioned me for 6 months, which ended in October of 23. And in the very same meeting that the mayor made the declarations that I have, my sanctions were over, and then I could resume my regular council duties. When we went into the closed session, I was presented with a letter of complaint that was written by our CAO and the consultant lady, alleging that I had harassed and bullied them.
And
Yeah.
how were you supposed to have done that exactly? And this is something I find interesting because Lisa Robinson said the same thing last week. They're scared. Like there's a reel that I put out there a couple of days ago, and the reel says, "What are they scared of, Lisa?" That's how it starts.
Well,
she says they're scared of the alt-right. Like she's kidding, right? And I said, "What? Like,
yeah.
like just
Oh,
that?"
they're not. That's not what they're scared of here.
No, they're scared of being revealed. Hey.
Yeah. So the harassment complaint is completely bogus, but my council decided to go forward with a third-party investigation that cost our community $40,000 and had a 580-page report produced that my council won't have voted not to make that document public. I'm fighting for it, by the way.
You
Everybody
want
should be
it to be public?
100%. Oh yeah, I mean it includes the investigators, the transcripts from the questioning of my fellow councilors. 100% that information needs to come out.
So why don't they want it out there? It's a public
Because
report.
if you read it, you would know why.
But
Oh,
my
yeah.
point is, I mean, like it should be available to the public, right? I mean, what reason do they have to hold it back? They can't. It was paid for with tax dollars.
Yeah, it certainly was, and it's the Access to Information Act. Now, it was a Freedom of Information and Privacy Act. The provinces recently made changes and to our privacy
Yeah,
act.
yeah.
But it's hiding behind the Freedom of Information. It's and again, I'm an expert on that too. I know that there are only 2 sections within that act at that time that in legalese the words must and may are very important, and so there are only 2 instances where a council would be beholden, a council in our case, right, would be beholden to withhold information. Only 2 instances. The rest are may. So it was it's at our discretion, right? So typically, I think that I think that they wanted me to step down, and that
You think?
I thought,
course
oh
they
my
do.
God, if I haven't stepped down for the last 2 years, you guys don't know who you're dealing with, obviously, right?
But it's got to be abusive. I mean, like when you go into how many times do you meet every month? Is it just the one time?
Twice.
Twice?
No, twice a month, yeah.
But you're not spending your full days in there or anything. It's not a full-time
No.
job being a counselor in Gibbons, Alberta.
No.
So you don't have to spend every single waking hour with these people, unlike others. I know that you've reached out to other elected municipal representatives in Alberta and maybe even further, and you're hearing a lot of the same types of stories, right?
Oh, it's not. Are you aware that the Minister of Municipal Affairs, or former minister, back in May of this year had made changes to the Municipal Government Act.
Yeah,
And
that had to do with
see,
Cochrane, right? Not
oh, well,
Cochrane,
no.
Chestermere.
Oh, yeah. Well, it was because Rick McIver was the minister at that time. He made a statement that the codes of conduct were being weaponized against council members, right? And
Yeah.
basically, like, and 100%, that's exactly what's been happening. But in my free time, I have spoken with these the former mayor of Chestermere, the Councilor Marty Fideko from Cochrane. I've spoken with her. It's not only the same scenarios. It's the same lawyers involved in many cases. It's the same individuals within. Let's just say it involves lawyers, developers, and municipal affairs.
It's one big circle
Same.
of dollar signs. Interesting, isn't it?
Who is involved in, that I've had to deal with?
What
on those three.
What about the CAOs? I know that there's a company in Ontario that many of these CAOs come out of to go to various different towns. Lisa was pointing out last week, she said the same company provides CAO for London, for Pickering, for Kitchener, I think, for Kingston, for several municipalities and counties around Ontario. And I thought that was interesting because they all must be aligned in the way they think ideologically.
I don't want to speak ill of and lump all of the individuals, who have held or are holding that position, the town or city manager position. I don't believe they're all the same. I don't know if but it's a very small circle. I mean, that executive position is, you have to know legislation. You have to know how to manage, how to communicate with different levels of government and different stakeholders. So there's as well as managing the staff, right? So it's not an easy. I wouldn't say that it's an easy job at all. So the pool of people that are drawn from in order to be put, to be selected for these positions, I would say are very small. And so, if in our case, if a CAO leaves and there are
You're very guarded in what you're saying.
concerns.
Just go say
Well,
it. You're not naming any names.
Okay,
here.
I'll tell you, if a CAO, is into nefarious activities or unethical behavior, whether or not it be they purchased land for personal use, that's public land, and they are well aware. I mean, my CAO went Fox Creek, back within 20 years, and I have actually communicated with, I've sought out councilors from these municipalities, but he came from Fox Creek, and then he went to Barrhead, and then he came to us. And when I spoke with the individuals who knew him, as the CAO, because they were councilors, his departure was for the same reasons. Council finds out that there's oftentimes it's the philosophies. This is how it's put out to the public. The philosophy between the councilors and the CAO don't align. Therefore, we have to let you go, right?
Sure. But it's really because the guys are crooked as a dog's hind legs. So let me ask you. I mean, you guys have got municipal elections coming up in October, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to go through the whole circus again. Are you going to run again?
If you would have asked me that, if you would have asked me that a year ago, I would have said hell no. But I must say that, it's taken me a long time and lots of hours on the phone because I'm the go-to counselor. Everybody knows who I am. Somebody needs their, driveway or their street plowed or their garbage hasn't been picked up. Everybody I'm the contact. So what had been happening is that the concerns that other residents have had about our CAO and what was happening in their own little silos throughout the town, they would all call me, right?
Yeah. So
Anyway,
you're the go-to, but let me ask
but
you.
long and the short of it is that those folks have stepped up to the plate because I said, look, listen, I'm going to continue to be beat up by the rest of council if they don't believe that I have public support. Because if there's nobody sitting in the gallery, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Then heck, we didn't even live stream I only started recording video recording the meetings myself. And
it's not even
them.
just having people in the gallery, although I agree that's important. It's about having allies, people, honest people who are going to dig into the crapola if they see it on council, right? So how difficult would it be to depose these incumbents? I'm sure they're all going to be running again in October, and replace them with actual honest people who will call a spade a spade.
Well,
have you rounded up a crew like that? I mean, and this is
what that I was just going to say that there's always a positive that comes out of a negative event, right? And I know there are 3 individuals that have currently signed up and put their name forward with their intent. Have never ever been, it would have never been in their
I'm not a politician.
No way, right? And so, and like I said, it's Hotel California, right?
You can check in, but you can never leave.
That's totally right. So yes, I have. As for me running, I will, because if there's an entirely new council with a brand new administrator.
Why don't you run for mayor?
Oh no, I don't want that. I'm more effective this way. Why don't I want it?
I mean, it would be fitting, I think, considering everything that you've been through, to be the actual face of the town.
I'm more effective as a counselor, I think, because
so you don't have you don't have strong mayor powers. You can just go ahead and be that. You got a vote, right? You're running the meetings and you're the face of the town. Maybe it's a little bit of extra work, but I think that's something people would probably kind of like, if they believe in justice at all.
Not that I haven't been asked, and honestly, I'm very, very honored that people even think that I'd be that I should be in that position, but it's I don't even know how to answer that.
How about just say, I'll think, what you could say?
I'll think about it.
Right. Give me a politician's answer.
I'll think about it. Sure.
Well, I'm honored, and I'll definitely consider it moving forward. Amber, I got to say thank you. And, with everything that you have been through, starting with that assault a few years ago and the amazing things you've done since then in terms of holding these people to account and continuing to fight. And again, guys, for you, those of you who just tuning in right now, this is Amber Harris. She's a counselor. We're in Gibbons, Alberta. This is the kind of stuff that she goes through. I'm going to play this video again, Amber, here.
Councilor Barry.
I would like to encourage Councilor Harris to put forward a motion if she would like to do that. Other than that, I would like us to move ahead.
I'm glad you'd like us to move ahead. I would like to know why we took out $2.5 million against our arena, why we're using it for operating costs and not calling it operating costs. It was presented to the public as a project, a capital borrowing bylaw.
Ms. Pino.
Just would like to remind council those discussions were held in closed session.
I'm not speaking about specifics, Ms. Pino.
You're asking about decisions that were discussed.
And the decisions were made. The decisions were made in public. I'm talking about the public.
But you're asking about deliberations.
Correct.
The deliberations are closed.
The documentation is a public document.
Correct.
That is what I'm asking about.
Happened in that.
No, that is what I'm asking about.
Section 23 of the FOIP Act says that deliberations remain closed.
I'm not asking about the
Document is-
deliberations. I'm asking why we are using $2.5 million for operating costs when the bylaw that is documented for the public to see indicates that it is a capital borrowing bylaw.
And the why is part of the closed session.
Yeah, you need some allies on that council. You need some allies. And I say, if you're the mayor, then you can look to the councillor and say, why don't you just shut up because you're not making any sense whatsoever. Maybe a little bit of their own medicine on them. Amber, thank you so much for coming in tonight. Thank you for everything that you've done. Thank you for the connections that you've made amongst other municipal politicians in Alberta. It's incredible what you've achieved, and I hope that you achieve more going forward.
And you know what? Thank you for your invitation, because the only way that people are going to find anything out is that if it gets out there to the public, right? And
Yeah.
Going forward, anybody who's watching, pay attention to your municipal council. Just pay attention. Go to a council
Pay attention.
meeting.
Yeah, go to the meetings, man. Like hold them
It's
accountable.
a couple hours, every 2 weeks.
I'll tell you
Yeah.
this, there's people here who are completely frustrated with their municipal councils because of bullies, like, mayor bullies who will say, you're not allowed to speak. Your delegation is shut down because I don't like the tone of your voice. And that needs to change. That's not proper procedure. That is just cultural
That's
Marxism
happened
as
in
far as I'm concerned.
ours. Yeah.
I'm
So.
sure. Amber, have a great night. Thank you. And we'll talk again, I'm sure.
You betcha. Thanks very much. Take care.
Okay, bye-bye. There is Amber Harris from Alberta, councillor. We've got more to cover. I know that we've been on now for an hour and a half, and usually the show is over a half an hour ago, but that was I thought, a very fascinating conversation. I think you guys need to hear what's going on with the Israel-Iran conflict, what happened today. Anyhow, this from Newsweek. Trump says Israel turning jets around, friendly plane wave to Iran. He put up a post on Truth Social as Israeli jets were flying towards Iran to drop more bombs. And the post says, Israel is not going to attack Iran. All planes will turn around and head home while doing a friendly plane wave to Iran. Nobody will be hurt. The ceasefire is in effect. Iran will never rebuild their nuclear facilities. Now, I personally, after all of this research I've done, I don't think that Iran has nuclear capabilities, at least not in terms of weapons. Maybe Trump does. Maybe he's seen something I haven't seen. You think that's even possible? Yeah, he's the president. So here is Donald Trump today after more negotiations between Israel and Iran. And remember that Bibi Netanyahu is never, ever, ever, ever going to give up until the 7 countries on his list are decimated. But here's what Trump had to say to reporters today. This is priceless, especially what he says at the end.
Iran violated the peace agreement, the ceasefire agreement. Do you believe that Iran is still committed to peace?
Yeah, I do. They violated it, but Israel violated it too.
Are you questioning if Israel is committed?
Israel, as soon as we made the deal, they came out and they dropped a load of bombs, the likes of which I've never seen before. The biggest load that we've seen. I'm not happy with Israel. You know, when I say, okay, now you have 12 hours, you don't go out in the first hour and just drop everything you have on them. So I'm not happy with them. I'm not happy with Iran either. But I'm really unhappy if Israel's going out this morning because of one rocket that didn't land, that was shot, perhaps by mistake, that didn't land. I'm not happy about that. You know what? We basically have 2 countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Do you understand that?
That was not AI. That was Donald Trump. Whoa. I can't say that I've ever heard him use that word ever. Well, he's president, that is. It's unbecoming. It's unbecoming of a president to use that kind of language. At the same time, it's like, hey, man, I get your frustration level. I don't know what he's been going through behind closed doors. Now, if you saw the extension on shadowdavis.com last night, you may have some idea of what he's doing and why. But you got to be a member for that. So become an all-access Nighthawk at shadowdavis.com. You can go ahead and see. Just go and watch last night's extension. All will be explained. Here's a story that I found rather disturbing. Speaking about elected representatives being canceled or removed or censored or whatever you want to call it. It comes from the Western Standard. Highly politicized external review on RCMP. No, that's the wrong story. Sorry, this from Table Salt. Catherine Cronus was first elected to Ancaster High Secondary School as chair in 2023 and then re-elected as a council member in 2024. On April 9th, Cronus council meeting opened as has become customary with a land acknowledgement read aloud by Principal Jason Monteith. Well, Catherine didn't like that, and here was her response to it.
Hi, I'm Catherine Cronus, and I just wanted to say, as a parent member of the Hamilton Wentworth District School Board, I would like to emphasize that Principal does not speak on my behalf with regards to the land acknowledgement. In my view, the board's imposition of a land acknowledgement during our school council meetings undermines the democratic process and constitutes a form of compelled speech, which I believe contravenes the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. There is no school board policy mandating its inclusion. In my opinion, the sentiments implied by the land acknowledgement are political in nature, highly controversial, and therefore divisive and inappropriate within a government institution. And I respectfully request that my objection be noted in the minutes of this meeting.
After that, she was suspended. I think hate speech, maybe hateful behavior, that was the reason cited. Catherine Cronus was suspended for saying, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to say what you're forcing me to say. This is Canada. We don't have to do that stuff. This is cultural Marxism, and it's infested our institutions. I know this is something you've heard before, but there's people out there who believe that we still live in a free country. People like Kevin Kline, who is the publisher of the Winnipeg Sun. Kevin Kline. Well, he's making a decent point with this particular editorial piece. He seems to be woefully misinformed as to what Canada has become. Interesting, because he was an MLA, a conservative MLA in Manitoba not so long ago. Kevin Kline says this: McGill Group's anti-Canada event crosses the line. And I would say absolutely, he's right about that. But let's read the editorial and you'll see what I'm talking about, why I'm so piqued. A group in Montreal called QPIRG McGill, QPIRG McGill, is hosting what they call a decolonial anti-Canada Day barbecue and fundraiser on July 1st. Their Instagram post spells it out. Join us for a decolonial anti-Canada Day BBQ and fundraiser on July 1st from 2 to 6 p.m. We'll meet at Parc Jean Mance near the corner of Mount Royal and Park. There will be vegan and gluten-friendly options. Grab free food and mingle with tablers from the Palestinian Feminist Collective. That's ridiculous. Spring Network, Health Workers Alliance for Palestine, the Mohawk Mothers, and more. Fundraising proceeds will go towards various local decolonial struggles. Details to be announced. This isn't activism, Klein says. It's contempt for Canada disguised as a community event. So far, I'm down with that. I agree. Let's be clear. If you're fundamentally anti-Canada, what exactly are you still doing here? You eat the food, you drink the water, you walk the streets protected by Canadian law enforcement. You go to school or work under the rights and freedoms guaranteed by the Charter. Whoa, 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 whoa. Now I'm starting to get a little bit curious as to where he's going. You receive health care funded by Canadian taxpayers. You enjoy infrastructure, subsidies, public education, and a functioning rule of law. Whoa. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Now I'm even more curious as to where he's going next. You benefit from a society people risk their lives every year trying to join. They get free money. I know that much. So why stay? What gives anyone the moral license to condemn the existence of this country while enjoying its full range of protections and privileges? Again, protections and privileges as long as you toe the line, as long as you don't step across it. This isn't a protest against a specific injustice or policy failure. It's not a call for reform or improvement. This event, and many others like it, Klein says, is based on the idea that Canada itself is illegitimate, that it's not a nation to be made better, but a nation to be dismantled. The slogan might as well be, burn it down, then ask for seconds at the buffet. If you genuinely believe that Canada is nothing more than a colonial project with no redeeming qualities, then have the integrity to separate yourself from the system. I agree with that. Stop collecting the benefits. Stop using the infrastructure. Stop relying on the tax-funded services provided by a country you reject. That's the problem. It's not just that these activists are critical of Canada. It's that they want to destroy the idea of it while continuing to live off of it. It's not courage. That's freeloading wrapped in political jargon. Canada, like every other country, has flaws. We've made mistakes. We've had painful chapters in our history. But we've also, now this is where I have a real problem with what he says, but we've also built one of the most peaceful, stable, and free societies in the world. Whoa, 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 whoa. A place where dissent isn't crushed. I say again, Kevin Klein, the publisher of the Winnipeg Sun, in an editorial that I mostly agree with, but this part, no. A place where dissent isn't crushed. A place where protest is protected. What are you even talking about, Mr. Klein? Dissent is crushed in this country, and it's still being crushed. How long have Tamara Leach and Chris Barber been on trial? They're finally got their verdict. They're finally going to get their sentence at the end of this month. 3.5 years, man. How many thousands, if not millions of dollars have they had to spend defending themselves against mischief charges? How many millions of dollars has the Canadian government spent trying to prosecute these two, again, on mischief charges? What about the Coots guys? What about the other truckers? What about all the school trustees and municipal councilors who are heaved out of their elected positions because they said the wrong thing? Dissent is crushed in Canada, and that needs to be looked at. Protest is not protected here unless, of course, the federal government or whichever government agrees with the protest that's going on, like Palestinians. If you're trying to protest that the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms has been completely and totally upended, well, I'm sorry, but we're going to freeze your bank account. He goes on to say a place where you can hold an anti-Canada event without fear of arrest, retribution, or censorship. You mean like the Freedom Convoy? That's not colonialism, that's freedom. Kevin. Again, you know, it's these kinds of editorials from pseudo-conservative, pseudo-common sense people out there, people that still can't see the light of day, and it's right in front of their faces. Or maybe they're just scared to say it. And that's the kind of behavior that really pisses me off. You know what? I'm sorry. I feel like I'm yelling, and I probably am. But if you got to be blind, willfully blind, to not see what's going on. You've seen what's going on, Mr. Klein. You know what's going on. You were an MLA when the Manitoba Freedom Convoy was happening in front of the legislature where your office was. And there were thousands of people there. You knew what was going on. You know today what was happening. And yet you say, a country where dissent isn't crushed. You're full of shit, sir. He goes on to say what's disturbing is how casual the hostility has become. Well, that is true. See, there's a lot of true in this. This isn't fringe. These ideas are becoming normalized. They're often embraced in institutions that owe their existence to Canadian taxpayers, schools, arts organizations, advocacy groups, and more. Even if McGill University isn't officially endorsing this particular event, its name is attached to this group. The silence from leadership speaks volumes. The silence from you speaks volumes, Kevin Klein. You somehow skipped over the important parts. We're watching a growing segment of activist culture move beyond criticizing governments or policies and into scorning the very country that enables their voice. And we let it slide under the banner of progress. It's not progress, it's cowardice. Canada is worth defending. Well, I would say yes. The way it once was, the way it was 10, 15 years ago, I'd take that Canada any day. So maybe it is worth defending, just some past version of it. It's worth protecting from those who would rather tear it apart than contribute to making it better. We're not talking about reform or change. We're talking about people who refuse to recognize the legitimacy of the country itself and who reject everything that holds it together. Well, again, I'm not even sure that it's a legitimate country. There's a lot of problems in the history of this country. We're supposed to feed them, fund them, stay quiet. No, not this time. There comes a point when a nation has to say, if you reject everything the country stands for, then don't expect to enjoy the things it provides. Because those things weren't handed down by accident. They were built by generations of Canadians who worked, served, fought, and sacrificed to build something stable and free. If you don't see the value in that, if you believe this country is a failure at its core, you're free to leave. Canada does not hold people hostage. Well, you don't build walls to keep citizens in. Not yet. You're welcome to find a country that better reflects your values, but don't build your life here while declaring this country irredeemable. That's not activism, it's exploitation. This isn't about banning criticism. This isn't about silencing debate. In fact, strong countries encourage it, but patriotism isn't a dirty word. Nationalism is, apparently. It's not unreasonable to expect a basic level of respect for the place that makes all this possible. We can have honest conversations about history, inequality, reconciliation. We must, but we can also be unapologetically proud of the nation we've built, one that doesn't cancel out the other. So if you're going to do land acknowledgements, then give the land back. If not, then shut the hell up. The reality is that Canada remains a beacon for millions around the world. I disagree with that. People line up to come here. They don't risk their lives to reach Venezuela. They don't flee war zones for Cuba or Iran. They come to Canada for peace, safety, education, work opportunity, freedom. It's not true. You go ahead and talk to any immigrant, whether they're irregular or not, and ask them what their first destination of choice was. And you can bet that 80 to 90% of them will say, yeah, I wanted to go to States. If those things mean nothing to you, that's your right, but don't pretend you're taking some noble stand while collecting every benefit this country offers. Canada is not the enemy. It's the platform that gives you the freedom to criticize it in the first place. Like, what is this dude smoking? Did he go to like smoke signals or something before he wrote this? Take a big haul off some big fatty and then write an editorial that was about pseudo freedom? We need more Canadians, especially in positions of leadership, to speak up and defend this country. Not blindly, not without reflection, but with conviction and pride. In other words, you can acknowledge that, yeah, there were some problems along the way, but that's in the past. Let's move on. Shall we? It's like talking to a child that's fallen down and scraped his knee and is crying about it 2 days later. Son, stop now. Events like this should be called out for what they are, an insult to the very idea of Canada. McKill should make that clear. Leadership matters. Silence is complicity. Yeah, Kev. What about it? Country's worth standing up for, and I, for one, will never stop doing just that. But I will freeze your bank account if I feel necessary. Give me a break. It's a bunch of crap. Oh, and so is climate change. Here's a CTV weather report from Toronto just this morning. Watch this.
Hot outside. You need to limit your time outdoors if you are tuning in from parts of Ontario or Quebec. We are talking about humidex values in the the mid to high 40s, particularly the farther south and west you go. So the Western Ontario really taking the worst of it for Windsor and then up toward the London area. Air quality can reduce during an event like this, and you'll particularly notice it if you are a child, if you are elderly, if you are pregnant, if you have respiratory issues. You all are going to be more affected by this heat, just not only in terms of breathing, but also in a limited ability to regulate your body temperature. So there are the heat warnings. They will be.
She's not a medical expert. What is she doing giving medical advice? That's outrageous. But look at this. Oh my God, the planet is burning. It's so hot everywhere, except for these little parts here. This is crazy. If this is 30 years ago, we're going, yeah, man, it's a hot one, man. It's a hot snap. It's brutal. Where's the hose? Give me the hose. I want a hose and a popsicle, please. I'm going to sit right here in front of the air conditioning. But these days, it's like, oh my God, we're killing the planet. This should be outlawed. We should be laughing at this by now. We should be looking at this and going, these people, that's absolutely ridiculous. But then you see people in stores going, well, you know what? I recycle climate change and all that, doing my part. Give me a break. This is the same person who's got a different flag in their Facebook profile every week. I guess maybe it's time for the aliens to come. Here's a little montage I put together. And what I was going to do tonight is run a Dr. Stephen Greer piece in the extension. But here it is, 9:46 already. And the extension hasn't even begun yet. So what we're going to do is take that piece and run part of it tonight in the extension and then the rest of it tomorrow night. But here's this piece begins, watch this, with Bill Clinton making a cryptic announcement, I suppose, when he was president back in the 1990s.
I think there are lots of interesting discoveries, biological, on Earth, and other discoveries in the heavens that those of you who are younger will get to see unfold. You'll have... What? Let's go back and watch this from the beginning again. Watch. So I think there are lots of interesting discoveries, biological, on Earth, and other discoveries in the heavens that those of you who are younger will get to see unfold. You'll have all kind of problems with them, but on balance, it'll be a plus. And it'll make life much more interesting.
We're kind of preparing the U.S. population, at least. And
Hold on. Before we hear from this former CIA officer, John Ramirez, on why all the UFO stuff is happening now. Remember the drones that were flying over the eastern seaboard earlier this year? What the hell was Clinton saying there? Is he pretty much saying that the aliens are going to come, but not for a few years? So you young people, you're gonna see some crazy shit. But hey, man, it's going to be okay in the long run. You're going to have to go through a little bit of suffering, but it's going to be fine. What? And then he flies off to Epstein Island. Oh. Something else I'm going to be running in the extension tonight is Virginia Giuffre's dead man switch went off. And she outs some people. It's nothing new. Well, it is kind of. But there's more of them coming. All right, so that's going to come up in the extension. Anyway, let's continue on with this. Why is this all happening now?
By extension, the world population, and to that reality that there is a presence here, and that we need to explain this presence. Because if they show up and we continue to do what we did before in previous decades, and they show up, there will be mass panic. But if you understand that these are real, and we have 5 years from 2022, or maybe now 4 years, if they come in 2027, for the U.S. government to prepare the people about what is up there. And in many ways, I think the word got out within the government that they're showing up in 2027, and we better be prepared. And if not, there's going to be a lot of explaining to do. And so I think that dialogue has happened within.
Is anybody out there buying this? That by 2027, hey, guess what? We're not alone. This is a former CIA officer. Maybe he's just trying to make a buck, sell some books. I don't know.
Inside the government, in certain areas inside the government, that we need to prepare. And that's why in 2017, that set a clock of 10 years. And why Lou Elizondo earlier in this year said, just find a hobby for 5 years. And, it'll all be out in 5 years. And he said that this year. So that was 2027. And I would say I've heard 2027 in a kind of an official capacity that I can't reveal. So I think I would say that people in the government are aware of something happening and that there's limited time.
I see a lot of no's here. You guys aren't buying this. So what have you seen in the past 5 years that you thought you'd never see in your lifetime? And you're still going to sit there and say no? I'm up for listening to anything at this stage of the game. I'll use my own discernment. And I'm hoping that you are as well. But hey, take a little more time in your decision. So consider it a bit longer, please.
A few more years to prepare the people, and that's what's ramping up. This acceleration from the previous 7 decades of not even acknowledging it to now we are acknowledging it at a faster and faster rate.
You mentioned the moon landing. Did we land on the moon? Because there's some people who think we didn't.
Well, we did. We just weren't told what happened. When we landed on the moon, these covert programs knew it was likely that Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin and these guys might see something. And so they had some alternative film already pre-prepared and shot. Fake. Buzz Aldrin's sister has told me very directly that everything I've shared just now is true, but that it's not her job to out him. And of course, Neil Armstrong, through a friend of his, told us the same story, but he didn't want to come forward. When I invited him to these briefings for members of Congress back in '97, he said, it's been made clear to him, Neil Armstrong was told, we will kill you, your wife, your children, and your grandchildren if you ever speak of that.
Oh. Yeah. There's video out there of Stanley Kubrick saying he shot that moon landing film. I think I had it on the extension a couple of weeks ago. Now that I mention it, thank you, Michael, for that one. He's full of shit. Maybe. But then again, maybe not. After everything we've seen for the past 5 years, everything that we've seen, are you willing to just stand there and go, nope, this is where I draw the line? Or maybe, just maybe, spend a little bit of time listening. And then after that, you've absorbed the information. And this is only a tip. I mean, you guys do whatever you're going to do, but absorb the information and then, play with it for a bit. And then maybe in a few hours or even a few days, you sit back and go, no, can't believe that. Maybe in a few days, there's going to be things flying up there. Maybe you will be on the floor of an alien spacecraft or on some table being experimented. All right, that's it tonight, you guys. That's it. It's been a long show. But we still have more in the extension coming up in just a couple of minutes on shadowdavis.com for you all-access Nighthawks. For those of you who are not all-access Nighthawks, become an all-access Nighthawk. Boy, that's tough to say 3 times fast. It's like $10 a month or something, and you get to see all the extra content there. And I'm going to open the store pretty soon, the Shadow at Night store. We're going to have hats, and we're going to have T-shirts and maybe some hoodies and all of that for you guys to go ahead and peruse at reduced prices before we open them up to everybody else in a couple of months' time. And there's still 3 of you that need to get the prizes you won about a month and a half ago, and I'm going to be doing that tonight. All right. I'll catch you in the extension in a couple of minutes. And for the rest of you not joining us there, oh, and by the way, also join the Shadow at Night community on Telegram. Catch you tomorrow night at 8 o'clock Central Time with Dan Hartman as our special guest tomorrow. Love you all. Appreciate you all. Talk to you soon. Bye for now.